Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen Vaughn, your host for the Exhale podcast, a Black woman's guide to mental health. And today we are live from the IBE Summer Celebration at the Indiana Convention Center in Hall F. And I am here with my panelists. But before we get started, just thank you all for joining us for the podcast, watching the podcast, and you can always follow us at Exhale Be Well on IG. So let's get started with today's topic. And ladies, we've all felt as if we are not on point, as if we're not feeling like our best selves, just feeling a little burnt out, whether we're feeling tired, exhausted, always trying to push through. And typically we always do what? Push through, regardless of how it makes us feel mentally or physically. And then we lean on our sister friends, or we feel as if we can't ask for help. So that's why this topic is just so near and dear for me, and just really this podcast being a labor of love, because it's helping women all over live their best lives, right? We really do want to live our best lives. So I want to introduce to you Dr. Sigrid Elston. Give it up for Dr. Sigrid. She's been with us since day one. Episode 1 of Exhale. Now we're on episode 11, so super excited about that. I have Lakeisha Johnson. I met Lakeisha at a self-care Saturday event, and we kind of like kicked it off and just really started developing a tribe amongst ourselves and a sisterhood and a friendship. So thank you for being here. And new to the Exhale podcast, I have Kavalyn Day, sister friend of Lakeisha, that said, girl, listen, I'm doing this podcast. I think you would be great. I want to ask Karen if you can join us. And of course, the invitation is always open. So thank you for being here. So when we sit back and really think about burnout and what it feels like, because we're always in a system of pushing through, we may not know the signs. So can you share, and we'll start with any of our panelists here, because this is like a sister girl conversation. What are some of the telltale signs that I'm done, I'm burnt out, I'm pushing through, but I'm not feeling right, I'm not feeling like myself? This is probably a little bit more than what I think it is.
Hello, Karen. I guess thank you again for having me. I think burnout, we ignore so much of the signs and symptoms that you start to kind of feel like, well, this is just how I've been feeling. And sometimes when you start talking to each other, you start to realize, well, you know what? I've probably been feeling like this for a long time, longer than just a couple weeks, which is often the kind of time frame that we look for when we're looking for certain symptoms like depression or anxiety. We can say several months, maybe even years. So it may be headaches, it could be tiredness, exhaustion is definitely the key thing. One of the things that stands out to me, and I don't know if you all have experienced this personally, is when you wake up feeling tired, you finished your work day or whatever your responsibilities are for the day, and you have nothing left at all. And that's from all the different responsibilities that you need to do going forward. If it's dinner, changing your clothes, getting ready for the next day, and you feel spent. That is, I think, one of the main kind of day-to-day feelings that most of us have who experience burnout. The other part I would add to that would be the stomach aches, tiredness, restlessness. Um, your body starts to feel it. You feel it mentally, you feel it spiritually. There may be a certain level of cynicism and negative type energy that you might have towards any kind of request from family members, friends, or colleagues. Those are some other pieces too. You isolate, disconnect from people who are close to you.
Yeah, yeah, kind of piggybacking off of what she just said, I know the biggest thing that I've been able to recognize is when I feel as if I don't have a feeling of fulfillment or joy in the things that I'm doing. A lot of the work that people do, we find some type of excitement or joy or fulfillment in it. And when it gets to the point where it feels as if it's a task, rather than you being happy and feeling accomplished about the things that you're doing, I think that's a sign and a symptom of burnout as well.
Yeah, I would say I'm gonna speak personally, but also when I see a lot of my clients is that frustration that we feel. I'm irritated. Everything and everybody is getting on my last nerve. You go from 0 to 60. A lot of times that's just because you don't have any bandwidth left. It's not like you just are in a bad mood, but you just don't have anything left. So that frustration, a lot of times I think is a big sign of burnout that we miss.
So, how have you all experienced burnout? Can you share with us a personal story of burnout and your story of what you learned from it?
I think in general, as women, we already wear so many hats. And sometimes we get into the mindset of, I need to do this to prove that I'm capable. And when we do that, that's when we start to experience burnout. So for me, I think that there's been several times, and I'm even still working through this right now, where I wear so many different hats and I want to do all the things. I want to show up for all the people, all the events, everything. And I don't realize how much strain and stress that I'm putting on myself. And then I realize that I'm not even prioritizing the things that mean the most to me because I'm trying to give and give and give so much to other people. So for me, the way that I kind of bounce back from that is just paying attention to the basics. So, like you just talked about earlier, with paying attention to how we feel physically. If you're having headaches, if you're having stomach aches, what does your sleep look like? Are you having regular checkups at the doctor? Different things like that, that help me kind of just reground and recenter myself, so that I can kind of bounce back and get level headed.
Such a good point. So I would say, like, for my experience was probably kind of extreme because I ended up with like a physical diagnosis. And as I look back on it, it makes perfect sense why it came up. Like, I was working, I was going to school, I had 4 kids, my marriage was in trouble, all kinds of things was going on. And so at that time, I ended up with a diagnosis of like shingles. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am too doggone young for shingles. But the number one risk factor for that is actually stress. So I'm like, wait a minute. And so my body actually couldn't do anything else. So I hit the wall where I just actually couldn't function because I was so sick. So in that moment, I had no choice but to stop. But what I learned from that is you have to put the things in place that prevent you from doing that. Because if you're a giver, you're going to give. So if you don't put those boundaries in place to kind of set you up to not overgive or deplete yourself, it's automatic. It's just going to happen.
I think one we all can relate to was COVID. You know, the shift in our households, whether you live alone or with others, there still were more individuals who were at home trying to balance, navigate, negotiate who was around, the timing that others were available, quiet, asleep, awake, on calls, in class. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I think that that was a time for me where I was feeling like I had so many new clients who were coming and a lot of old clients who were returning. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have accepted these new clients, but now I have former clients who are now dealing with a heightened level of stress and wanting to give and be there for them, but yet have, my spouse, my children who are trying to juggle what life was like for them as far as academically. And so one of the things that we did a lot, DJ Nice and those dance parties came through. I don't know if they worked for you all. I know they did for you. But those dance parties, we even had our own in the house or just like a cleansing walk, around the house or between clients just to get some fresh air and to remove myself from the environment because we are used to natural breaks and didn't realize how important they are to us when there's something that we have all the time. And so when you feel like you're trapped and need to be for certain reasons, safety reasons, you can feel pretty burnout and stretched thin.
Yeah, that was a good point because COVID kind of changed the dynamic for everybody, right? Just a structure of how we worked, how our kids went to school, socialization, right? All of that was kind of halted and depleted. And if you are already on the go, 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 right? And during COVID, you're trying to figure out how do I make this all happen from my desk? And then you find yourself not working that 8 hour workday or 9 to 5 with no commute time. You're just working, 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 working. And it's 11 o'clock and you're like, I got one more thing to do, right? I could fit one more thing in. And I think that lifestyle has kind of shifted even after COVID, where you're like, oh, I have a couple more things to do. It's okay. Not knowing that that is depleting us. So when we think about our day to day and what we're going through and pushing through, when we think of burnout, what are some of the steps that one can do to kind of alleviate the stress, put up those boundaries, and really start functioning in the positive opposed to the negative?
Go ahead.
Well, I would say one of the things that I really firmly believe in is you got to have light space on your calendar and you got to have white space on your calendar.
Explain both. Life space and white space. I like that. I like that.
So your white space is just margin, right? Which we don't always give ourselves margin, which is like this is a blank spot where I don't have to have every single minute of my day scheduled. So I want to make sure every week I've got some white space on there. So that's usually if I don't have that, that's a key indicator that I'm headed in the right direction. But your light space is those things that's going to light you up. That thing that's exciting for you. That thing that when you look at it on the calendar, it actually excites you. You're like, oh, I'm looking forward to Friday now. Because a lot of times with burnout, we stop having things to look forward to. And so if you put that light space on there, even if it's a week away or 2 weeks away, even a month away, you start to get that anticipation, which is actually really good for your mental health.
I like that. The one thing that I do is I put my PTO time, I kind of like schedule it like for the year, so I'll have something to look forward to. And sometimes it's a little bit further away than I would like, or that spa appointment or nail appointment or brunch with my girlfriends. And sometimes it's really the little things that light us up. And just remember that it doesn't have to be something grand, super grand. It could just be something really small as, you know what, I'm going to put time on my schedule to sit on my patio and read a book. Yeah, yeah.
My two things are knowing your capacity and also having an accountability partner. I feel like a lot of times once we experience significant amounts of stress, and once we experience the burnout, we'll get back to the point where we feel like we need to be at, but then we burn ourselves out again and we stress ourselves out again and overwhelm ourselves again. So instead of us kind of experiencing the burnout, getting back to where we need to be, and then experiencing it again, we need to evaluate what it was that overwhelmed us and stressed us out to begin with. So that way we can know our capacity and we won't just say yes, yes, yes to everything. And then the second thing, of course, is having an accountability partner. Have somebody in your corner that's able to let you know, like, yeah, you're doing a lot. You need to calm down. Like, you're doing too much. Last time this stressed you out, you doing it again. So, yeah, definitely accountability partner.
I agree with everything that you all have said. And that we talk about boundaries a lot. And I think you alluded to that a bit earlier, Karen. And when we set boundaries, I think you've got to make sure that you have individuals around you who respect them. And so we've talked about this statement that no is a complete sentence, but it doesn't matter if it's a complete sentence if the people on the receiving end don't get that. And so you have to be very clear with yourself that that's what it means. Because what people typically say is, oh, it's a light ask, it's a light lift. You'll have a team, somebody will support you, you won't be doing it alone. And then what happens?
You're doing it alone.
There you go. Exactly. You said, now see, this is why I should have just stuck with that no. And so I think those accountability partners are huge, but it's very important to be very true and honest with yourself. When you say no, let it go and not feel that need for an explanation. This is the reason why, and that type of thing. And so when someone says, but you need to have a response, a very clear and simple response. If you care about me, you understand why I need to say no, no matter what. And so I don't need to give you that explanation. So another piece I think is also just limiting how much you put on your plate by prioritizing what's most important. What has to be done, what can wait, and this is every day. What has to be done, what can wait, what I can get to a little bit later on. Is anybody going to die if I don't do A, B, or C in this particular moment? Exactly. And so those are some things I think we need to be mindful of, because sometimes we think everything has to be done right here, right now. And we have other individuals around us who act like that as well. And we feel like we're going to let somebody down or disappoint someone or lose our job, lose our marriage or something if we fail, quote unquote.
Yeah. Let's unpack the power of no. We say it's a complete sentence, but the receiving end of it, I love that you brought that up. So let's talk about no and how to use no and how to express no. There's some ways of just saying flat out no, or you know what, I'm not sure if that's a fit, but maybe this is. right? Because we want to say no, and the first thing that's come to us is I can't, I don't want to. But then how can we have a better framing of no and when to use it? Because it may be easier to use it in your personal life and not your professional life. So what are some ways that we could use no personally and professionally?
I'm gonna be honest, my no is no. Like I don't care if it's my professional life, church, my family, my no means no. Because at the end of the day, yes, me saying no may make something in our relationship a little bit uncomfortable for a moment, but I would rather experience that small moment of uncomfortability with you versus me experiencing being super stressed out and burnt out in the long run. So
That's good. That's good, sis.
I mean, even if it's difficult for you to say no, you can follow it up with a no, I can't do this because I need to prioritize X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, on the receiving end for who you're telling no to, regardless of what you say or how you say it, they're going to take it in the way that they want to take it. So it's not like you being aggressive, like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, it's not that.
It's also in the position of how you say it. You're right.
So
You're right.
definitely how you say it matters. But you cannot control how somebody receives or accepts what you're saying. Like that's not for you to kind of dictate or control. So I would just say, I mean, say your no. If you feel like you need to follow it up with an explanation, do that. But sometimes the explanation isn't going to be enough, and you just have to stand 10 toes down on the fact that you're setting a boundary and saying no.
Okay. Absolutely. First of all, I'm probably with you because my no was absolutely no. But from a professional standpoint, I would say if you are given too many things to do, I think the phrase that I usually tell people to say is like, okay, so this, and this is on my list. Which one would you like me to prioritize?
Yeah.
Right? So you've already given me this. Your supervisor's giving you too many different things to do, and you know you can't handle one more thing. Where does this fall on the priority list? So that you put the ball back in their court. What we do a lot of times is make it our problem. It's our problem to worry about people's feelings. It's our problem to figure out how they're going to handle it. It's our problem to figure out how they're going to adjust to it. It's not. The request doesn't make it our responsibility. So we put it back on them. If this is the priority, great. Then you can take those other 3 things that you gave me last week and we good.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it all in. How about y'all? Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
Request doesn't make it our priority.
Yeah, the request doesn't make it our priority. Back in the day, we would say that's tweetable. And maybe the quote at the end of your name on your email.
Right.
Let's talk about time management. What are some effective time management tips that you can recommend personally and professionally? Because you may have a personal calendar, a professional calendar, or all weaving in together, and that makes your day like super long because you're trying to do it all for everybody. What are some ways that you can really time manage your day, your time?
This is a work in progress for me. I'm a single mother. I have 2 teenagers.
We're going to start again. Okay.
I said this is a work in progress for me because I'm a single mother. I have 2 teenagers at home, and they don't think of me as like being a person that has like actual things to do. So I'm just like, oh mom, you can do X, Y, Z, or we should do this, or we should do that. So it is a work in progress of like how I'm going to manage that time. And the thing that works the best for me is making sure that I have systems in my life that support me. So I don't have things that I have to constantly, like most of my bills are on auto pay. You know, most of the things that I know we're going to need every 3 months are on auto ship. So doing those things that don't require you to use your time that you know you're going to have to do on a regular basis or, you know, on a weekly basis or what have you, so that you give yourself back little chunks of time, and then looking for places where you can incorporate maybe a system that would help you. So I think those are the things that work, but this is, I mean, to me, it's always reflective of where you are in your life at that point. So it is something that's a work in progress.
Anyone else?
I would just add delegate. Delegate as much as you can, because this kind of combines with your previous question, but being able to delegate tasks if it's pretty pressing and you want to find out what are the options, that does take some time away and it kind of gives some back. And so something that may be a task that might seem tedious or or kind of trivial, someone else might be able to do and do it quicker, which would then allow you time to shift to somewhere else. And so, Kevin, I like what you said earlier about having that margin because we can push all the way to the minute. As therapists, we've been trained to make sure we have this wiggle room, this little 7-minute or 10-minute space between clients and
It's a lie. You don't get it.
you don't get it. You do not. And so I often encourage my clients to give back to themselves each day, even if it is 15 minutes in different ways, especially women oftentimes are such givers. We have been giving since we came over on the slave ship to this country and to everybody else's children and so and families and their husbands and their mothers, and so it's all that we know. And so we can sometimes feel guilty for being tired. We can feel guilty for self-care. We can feel like it's a privilege to take care of ourselves because our ancestors didn't have that choice or option. If they did take a break, somebody could die, right? And so some of that is still based on our religious beliefs and what's been modeled for us, that we have to be all the way to the minute. We got to use every single second. And so I think that even at night, when we're getting ready to go to bed, we're sometimes watching a show or on our phones all the way up until we fall asleep. And so you think that that's your downtime, but you don't have this conscious, awake, aware time of doing nothing, you know? And so I think we're not as aware of when we wind down because we think we are where we're really not. And so I think we really need to put some limits. We've studied this about anxiety time or stress time and putting a limit on how much you're going to give to this particular this energy to a particular thing. Put some limits on how much I'm going to worry about this particular thing. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then that's it. I need to move on to something else to then shift from deficit to productivity.
Yep. See. Yeah.
What does doing nothing look like? We know about doing and pushing and going, like you said, to the minute. But then when we have those minutes of doing nothing, we end up doing something because we don't know what doing nothing looks like. What does doing nothing look like?
For me, the doing nothing looks like mindfulness practices. I believe that there's so much power in our breath. Literally, there's so much power in just you breathing. So when I do nothing, regardless if it's me like playing some meditation music, me just sitting in the presence of God, like whatever that looks like for me, I'm incorporating breath work with it, because breath work benefits both your mental and your physical health as well. So I don't know, it's when we hear do nothing, of course, like you said, we're always gonna end up doing something in the midst of it, but make sure that the something that you're doing is beneficial to you and it's not detrimental to you.
What is breath work? And I also want you to speak to when we were together at the Self-Care Saturday event, really tying in nature into self-care and taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. So I believe for me that when we speak about mindfulness and nature, there's like this amazing connection with the two, because when we think about being grounded and recentered, and then you look at the things within nature, for example, if you look at a tree is always grounded, right? Now it changes over time and throughout seasons and stuff like that. We do as well. But if you're sitting in the midst of nature and you're utilizing that breath work, you're connecting your mind, your body, and your spirit to God's creation. And I think that there's nothing more powerful and revitalizing than that. So when I talk about breath work with my clients, most of the time I tell them to do something called square breathing. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out slowly for 4 seconds through your mouth.
Can we try it now with everyone?
Yep.
Okay, let's do it.
So breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you just do it in as many rounds as you need to do it. For me, I can literally feel the tension like releasing in my head when I do it. So yeah, there's power in the breath. Just breathe. That's a word. Just breathe.
Because you can even feel your shoulders and everything drop. I think to your point, when you're counting and you're doing kind of guided meditation or counting, you're focused on that and less about the thought. So when you talked about doing nothing, are we really doing nothing, or our bodies might be still, but we might be planning, thinking about something coming up, revisiting something that we said or did I do blah, 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 did I call so and so? And so we're never off. But when we're very focused in our meditation, our devotional time, or our breathing, it does shift our attention away to something else than our own thoughts that keep us busy, tired, stressed out, and burnt out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm a big fan of meditation. I love yoga nidra, which is like non-sleep deep rest, and it basically just focuses on you being really calm and present in your body. But I think the idea is that these things are practices. These things are practices. So if you start this and you're like, my mind is racing, or I feel like I have too much going on, or I can't get my mind to quiet down, it might take you some time. I've been meditating for probably 6 or 7 years now. I can definitely get into a very comfortable meditative state now that I couldn't have before, because it does take practice. So if it feels like you're not good at meditation because you don't know how to really be quiet or be still or do nothing, it does get better over time.
You said that you've been doing meditation for 5 or 6 years. Let's go back to month one, right? Why did you start meditating?
I don't remember exactly why I started. I think somebody recommended it. I'm sure it was somebody that recommended it. And so I gave it a try, and I'm like, when I get my mind quiet, that's when all the thoughts come. So it's like, this is not very helpful. I'm remembering like, oh, I didn't order this, I didn't do that, But what I realized afterwards is that I felt better. Like, it didn't necessarily in the moment feel good, or it wasn't anything that I could kind of tell. It's not magical or anything. It feels good now. Like, I'm better at it now. But initially, I would just remember thinking afterwards, like, wow, I really am calmer. My kids are not getting on my nerves quite so much. I'm not so snappy. Like, I just noticed the difference afterwards.
That's good. That's good. So when we talk about finding our tribe, right? What are some of the ways that really building a tribe that you can build your own support system? Because we have to sift through those relationships, because there's so many times that we don't ask for help and we should, and we're supported and we don't know we're supported. So how can one go about finding their support tribe, their accountability partner, their sister friends that got their back and they can lean and they know that they're always there?
Well, I already have sisters. I'm the youngest of three, so that's my support system. That's my tribe.
Awesome.
But like you talked about earlier, like, you have different environments call for different tribes and different connections. So like, I have my people that at my church that are my church tribe, so I can go to them for spiritual advice or wisdom, guidance, different things like that. I have my sisters who I can go to for literally everything. I have my group of friends that I met when I was in graduate school that I can bounce ideas off of for professional advice, different things like that. I will say that I've noticed recently that I'm in a season where, let me say it like this: when you get ready to go places, everybody can't go with you, right?
Right.
So I'm in a season now where a lot of the people that were around me, that is shifting. So it's not that like there was issues within the relationship, but sometimes you just outgrow people. And I think that when we talk about our tribe, we have to understand that it's okay for you to outgrow people. And you're gonna be detrimental to yourself when you try to hang on to those people. And I believe that when people are removed from your life, other people come in as a replacement. So we just have to make sure that we open ourselves up for those replacements and for those new connections, because I don't think that anything happens by accident or coincidence. So say, for instance, like us, we sit up here chopping it up, right, on this podcast, but that's a new connection for me. So when we have the opportunity to be in rooms and spaces that are new, lean into it and embrace it.
The saying, people are in your life for a reason or a season, right? Or a lifetime. Right? We have lifetime tribe members as well, right? So I love what you said. Did either one of you want to share what does finding your tribe mean to you?
Well, I just want to encourage people to consider if the possibility that you need to pay for your tribe. So I'm currently a single mom, and so I don't have a ton of day-to-day support with like caring for my kids and things like that. So there are times when I am paying for my children to be in a mentoring program or I'm in a sports program or things of that nature because I don't be it all. I don't want to be everything at all the time. So, and let's not forget, obviously, sometimes you need to have a coach or a therapist or a psychologist that you're working with. So don't underestimate the benefit of working with somebody who's a professional, who that's their job. We sometimes you have great sisters who are wonderful, and sometimes you have sisters who make you not feel supported. So it's perfectly fine to have that person that you know, like, oh, I think I want to, find somebody that's just for me. So having that person that's just for you is important too.
I would just add to that point that when you work with someone who is disconnected from your family or your friend group or tribe, you don't worry so much about protecting them. So I think about some clients who might have experienced a loss, and this loss was hard for everyone in the family. I can't express how I'm feeling or have an emotional moment because then I know that you're going to start thinking about losing that person, and you're also going to feel sorry for me. So then I've got to hold back how I'm feeling, so I'm not really healing in the way that I need to. And so having someone who's removed and neutral to the situation does help. You love your tribe, and your tribe is supportive, but sometimes they can love too hard. They can be too present, and so it can be great to have someone who might be a little bit more balanced, and you can really have a kind of healthier, more straightforward way to express yourself, but also come back with the healing and straightforward, direct kind of guidance that you need that has that other part somewhat removed.
I want to know, the three of you, your thought on this. I watched this video, and it was of Kerry Washington, the actress, and she talked about therapy, and she talked about how she's been in therapy for years. And the person to her said, well, is it really working? I mean, you've been going to therapy for years. She's like, oh, no, no, no. It's just like if you work out every day and you're on the treadmill and you're feeling good and you're working out and you're taking care of your body. Well, my therapy sessions are taking care of my mind. And I love the way that she equated both, because sometimes we don't think about taking care of our mind because we can't see it, right? And just really taking the time to have mindfulness, to have a therapist, to have a tribe, so we're not burnt out and we're living in a world of bliss. What does bliss look like to the three of you?
Such a question. It's such a good question. I think for me, bliss equals peace, right? So when you were talking about getting out in nature, I remember like the very first time I connected with nature. Like I've never been an outdoorsy kind of girl, but there was a moment when I took my kids to Counter Prairie, and they have a tree house out there, a big giant tree house. And I remember being out there and looking out, and I thought, is this what people feel like when they're outside? Because this is some kind of thing. I'm feeling this. But I had never really, and that was after I started meditating, believe it or not. I was able to be really present and can connect with that. So that feeling of just peace, that I can withstand things, or I can be like, I'm above it. Like just that kind of feeling of that, to me, that's bliss.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. Something came to my mind that we talked about in the podcast taping that we did in episode 9, was it? Yeah. Is that a lot of life is about learning how to handle hard things better. So for me, bliss is learning how to handle hard things in a better way. Like you said, responding to it in an effective way, or either just realizing I'm above this and it doesn't require a response. Definitely joy and fulfillment and peace above all things.
When you asked the question, it made me think of a great aunt of mine who's from Wisconsin. And I remember at her husband's funeral, this is almost maybe 8 years ago, I had another aunt who said, why are you so happy? Was asking my great aunt. One aunt was asking another aunt, why are you so happy? And she said, because I had a great life with him. And I thought, wow, they've been married for, at that time, probably close to 55, 60 years. And I thought how much we can learn from that. Yes, of course she was going to miss him, but it reminded me that there are different states of feeling and feeling sad, missing someone, having a rough day. But Bliss, when you all speak about this kind of consistent peace with your choices, peace with who's in your life, who's not in your life, what you do on the day to day. And when she made that statement, it stuck with me. And I thought, you know what, that is a goal. She's my favorite auntie, but it's definitely a goal to know that everyone who's in my life or was in my life will always be with me, and what I do on the day to day are things that I do that make me happy and feel peace and fulfilled. And to me, that spoke about a blissful life.
That's beautiful.
What did it look like for you?
Sitting at Savin Rock in West Haven, Connecticut, on the bench that's been there since I was a child, looking at the Atlantic Ocean on the beach. That's bliss to me. Whenever I go home, that's my first place. I live 7 minutes away from there. My mom still lives in the same home. So that is my place. I go inside Jimmy's and I get a fry combination platter with fries. While I'm waiting for it, I have a apple martini, and then I take my fried combination platter and I sit on that bitch, and I'm probably there for 3 or 4 hours, just sitting, doing nothing. I am thinking about the things I should do, who I need to visit while I'm home, but it's just my serenity space, and that's my biz place, for real. Thank you. So we're gonna open up questions to the audience now, and I would love to hear your thoughts, and if anyone has a question, and as you state your question, just your name and your question.
Hi, ladies. My name is Rita, and my question is twofold. So, we talked about how to escape, basically, how to find that peace place. What does someone do when they can't afford that? So, if you need a day off of work, if you need to go to the beach, what do you do when your livelihood depends on you not doing that? And then, how does your home life impact your work life? So your personal to your professional, what things can we do at home to keep the chaos out of the rest of our days?
Well, you gave us hard questions to start with. So I think one thing that we don't think enough about when it comes to protecting yourself from burnout is living a life that is filled with your values. So it doesn't necessarily cost you any money to do the things that you actually value that are important to you. Whether it be like focusing on your own growth or focusing on your own kind of sense of well-being or your own self-esteem. So make sure that you've included that in your life in some capacity. But then like the balance between work life and home life is kind of goes back to that values point, which is you decide your priorities, make those the first thing on your list, and then fit everything else around it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danita Smith, and my question is, for as far as your family, when they look at you as the strong person in the family, and they depend on you to do everything, like take care of everything if somebody's sick, but like, what do you do when you can, or who do you go to when you don't have that strength and to lean on, like, because they think, oh, she's the strong one, when you're burnt out and they don't recognize that.
I think it starts with being honest with yourself and them about where you're at. A lot of times we're like, okay, I'm okay. Like, yeah, I'm stressed out, but I'm okay. I can get through this. Like, I'll take care of it. No, be honest and let them know I cannot do this right now because I'm feeling this way. But we can't be honest with others until we're honest with ourselves first. But for me, the place that I go to kind of like revitalize myself is my prayer closet. That's the place that gives me my energy back. But even to that question, I feel like it sounds like there's some boundaries that need to be put in place. So yeah, I would think about that too.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Inga, and I just had a question. So Sigrid said you need to turn things off. And I know you guys on the panelists said there was different things that you did to turn your mind off to a certain point, like meditation. I've tried to meditate. I've been in a prayer closet, but my mind is always running. And to the point of being a strong person, your family's always leaning on you. And even in the midst of when you're going through losing a loss, but also doing everything to help keep your mind off that loss. And then you try to sit still and feel the presence of the Lord, but your mind is still racing. So, what is your recommendation to truly turn your mind off and just relax and prevent yourself from stressing out and allowing health issues to creep in when you're not recognizing?
The first thought that comes to mind is being able to journal and getting out some of those thoughts. Some people do it daily. Some individuals might not do it daily, so you can't punish yourself if you miss that. What you often will find too is that it disrupts your sleep. So either you're not sleeping a full night, you're delayed in going to sleep, or you wake up early and those thoughts start to take over. I recommend, and I even do this, for myself, I recommend to my clients to write them out, because a lot of times you're ruminating over things that have happened in the past or something you're hoping to not forget. And so they can keep you up and your mind is just staying active. One piece of that is that you start to see some themes in some of the things that continuously come up for you and say, okay, I need to talk to my therapist about this, or I need to talk to my partner or my children about this, because there's this piece about control. Not saying that you're a control freak, but when we're used to having so much responsibility and everyone depending on us, you realize you are that person who has to hold it together all the time. And so you even tell yourself that, and even in our work environment, we know that we have to kind of turn off emotions to look like we have it together, so no one thinks that we can't handle it. So then you're going through every aspect of your life with your family of origin, with your siblings and parents if they're alive, or with your children, your family that you created. Everyone is expecting you to fix it, to make it happen, and to figure it out. And so you have no break, no pause. So that's when you need to delegate, have a conversation with all parties involved, write it out so you can start to look at those themes, talk to your therapist and say, hey, this continuously comes up. I need to do something about that. But when we try so hard to hold it in, we typically will implode and we start to fall apart mentally, physically, or spiritually, or we explode, and so we release it with anger, crying, the frustration, upset, and other people start to experience it. I think it's very important to ask your loved ones, do they know? Do they notice? Do they pay attention to any changes? A lot of times, they notice some things quicker than we do because we're so used to being in do mode. And so they'll say, well, yeah, I noticed that you weren't really talking as much, or I noticed that you were a little snappy, more than usual. Now, our children, especially those teens, or the ones who don't think that we are human, they might not even care or realize that we are human. And so that's something too. But I do think it's very important to start journaling or making notes, keeping a little Post-it next to your bed at night when you can't sleep, instead of forcing yourself to go back, because you won't. Write it out.
Hello, ladies. My name is Beth. And first of all, thank you for being here, taking the time to address something that is so important in our community. And as women of color, things that we don't really get to put out in the forefront because we're always in go mode. We're mothers, we're protectors, we're nurturers, and all those things. So again, thank you for taking the time to do that. I actually wanted to ask a question. I was just talking to Rita here about journaling, and then you brought it up. So how do you start? And I say that I've purchased so many along the way, so many different times, and I start, and it's the best laid plan, right? But then we get so busy that we don't get back to writing down those things and saying, okay, this is what I know I need to do for me. So how do you get in the mindset of making sure that this is a practice that you can continue to do, and so that it is helpful and beneficial to both your mental, physical, spiritual health?
I think, like we said earlier, everything is a practice. So you gotta keep doing it to get into the routine of it. Even if you feel like you don't have the time to pull out a piece of paper or your journal and write, I do something called voice journaling. So a lot of people have iPhones, even if you don't. Android, I'm pretty sure they got something on there you can record. Okay, you got it, you got it. um, but it's like, say for instance, like I'm driving in a car and there's a thought that keeps coming up in my mind. Of course, I'm driving, I can't write it out. I'll pull my phone out and I'll just voice record. And a lot of times when I'm voice recording, I feel like I'm doing something that I like to call word vomiting. But sometimes you got to just get it all out. And it's in the safe space of being on your phone, so nobody else is going to hear it unless you allow them to listen to it. Yeah, just finding different means. Don't feel as if it has to be a piece of paper you writing it out on. It can be you speaking it out loud in the mirror to yourself as well. Like, it can be you recording it. It can be you recording it on your phone. So just different means. And then also, if you need to schedule it in your day, like Calvin was just talking about, put a specific time on your day, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes of you being able to journal, and set reminders on your phone so it can give you those alerts.
I want to add to that because I am a horrible speller. I would love to journal, but I was a horrible speller growing up. And I remember watching, and I'm going to date myself, an episode of Doogie Howser, and at the end he would type on his computer. I was like, it was like a light bulb moment for me. So I just started journaling in my computer and just saved the file. And now, of course, with apps, there are journal apps that you can kind of like type on your phone or on your iPad or on your computer or whatever works for you. But I just had to work through like, I want to get my thoughts out, but I was like, I was a kid. How do I spell, X, Y, and Z? And then I don't have time. And my mother would always say, go to the dictionary. Well, I'm trying to get a thought out. I don't have time to go to the dictionary to look how to, you know what I mean? So Doogie Howser opened up that door for me and being able to type it on my computer. So that could be helpful as well.
I like that idea, and even just making notes in your phone. I'll tell my clients not to get so caught up in how to do it. So even your point about writing correctly and spelling correctly, sometimes it's just free association. Just we can get so caught up in a particular way to journal. So maybe even if you're short on time, it's 3 thoughts for the day: bad, tired, hungry. And so it might be something that will prompt you later on to come back to it, but those are the main thoughts you had about the day. That says a lot, even if it's 3 words. And another day, it might be just coming up, just different sentences of thoughts that you had that may seem disjointed, disconnected, but it's for you. It's not for your English professor, for your boss, or someone else to review and approve. They are your thoughts, they're your emotions. And so I think it does take some pressure off to feel as if you're performing for somebody or for a grade or a score or a dollar amount. It's yours.
Yeah, I want to piggyback that when you were talking about the pressure, because I think we have all these different practices and all these different things that we talk about that we know we should do, and then we feel guilty when we don't do them. So then you build up all this pressure for the next time, and now you got to make your journalings that much better. So give yourself some grace. So it's been 2 weeks since you have journaled, that's okay. This is, the 5 minutes that you're doing today and the 10 minutes that you do next Thursday and the 15 minutes that you do a month from now, all of those things do have a cumulative benefit for you. So don't trip yourself up if you're not able to do it perfectly. This is not about perfection. This is about the practice of doing it consistently, because it will actually benefit you in the long run.
This sounds like a whole nother episode on journaling. That's what I'm getting out of this. I think that's something that we need to do, ladies, for sure. Do we have any other questions in the audience?
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
My name is Lauren Perkins. So I'm in college. I'm in my last year. But I have a really hard time with procrastination. So the inner me knows what I have to do. I have the to-do list, but I'll wait till the last minute to do everything. And then it overwhelms me. It gives me this great big fear of anxiety. And then I'm like having a meltdown because I'm like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, but I know that I need to do it. So I don't know if it's like self-confidence. I don't know if it's like what it is, but just a little advice on trying to stay a course this year because it's my last year. So I would say a planner, of course. Um, I'll give you that advice, but I didn't use a planner myself. I bought a planner every single year, and I would like start off at the beginning of the semester, reading through all the syllabuses, writing everything down, and then I wouldn't do it because I felt like that was a task in itself too. So the thing that worked for me that may work for you as well is when you first get the assignment, if you have the time in that moment, immediately do it or immediately start to work on it. Because again, a lot of times when we do procrastinate, we're bringing that anxiety and that stress upon ourselves. So your desire to not want to be stressed out and anxious needs to be your motivation to not procrastinate anymore.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off of that. Jumping to it as soon as you're finished with class. A lot of times after class, we have time with our friends, or you just want to just get away from it all. Add an hour after each class if you can to have focus time on that class and start that assignment. It's sort of like your own extension or your post-production of your class. So then you get started, you get motivated, the creativity starts going, and you start brainstorming, and you may realize that you have the whole assignment completed already, and then you're gonna feel empowered to go to the next assignment and the next assignment after that. Because sometimes it is a little daunting, you're just like, I just wanna get out of class. But turning the switch on is like, this is an extension of the class, and give yourself that time, and when you don't, just give yourself grace.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull from the book Atomic Habits for a second because I have been known to procrastinate, but when you're looking to create a better habit, you want to connect it with something that's already a habit. So look at something in your life that's already a habit that you're doing on a regular basis. So let's say you are going to the gym in the morning, or you always fold your laundry once a week or what have you. Make a habit of like, okay, when it's time for me to go to do my laundry for the week, I'm gonna pull out my notebook and review whatever the assignments are that I have to do for the upcoming week and make my plan, so that you connect something that your brain already knows it's gonna do no matter what with that new thing that you also wanna do, so that you kind of get like, it's kind of like a mind hack basically. So you get into that habit of making a plan and following the plan, and then if it comes up before that point in the week, you're like, oh, I know I'm gonna do it when I do my laundry. So you gotta like give yourself like a get out of jail free card in that moment, but you already know when you are gonna look at it. So just kind of build those things in. I think sometimes that can help too.
What was the name of the book again?
Atomic Habit. I think it's by James Clear. Don't quote me on that.
Atomic Habits. Got it.
I would say that one of the themes in what everyone has spoken about is what we often do is work from the deadline, and we say, oh, I'm not going on that trip to Jamaica until the end of August. And then you say, I got my time, and I push off working out. So it doesn't matter if it's school, if it's a project for work, if it's starting a routine for exercise or healthier eating. We work often from when we know it's due and feel like we have more time. But if we start when it's fresh and at the beginning, you can pace yourself a little bit each day, or pace yourself according to a particular schedule that works for you to work towards it, as opposed to panicking because now you have no time. But we often do that as folks who have long been graduated from school in different ways.
Do we have another question in the audience?
Hello, ladies. My name is Arlene, and I do a lot of volunteering in my community.
Yes, you do.
I like giving back. The issue is, I know y'all was talking about no means no, but I don't know how to say no to people. I'm just that type of person. I'm very active. I just want to keep going. And no means yes to me. So I want to know, I need some help with saying no. Can y'all give me any advice?
Okay, here's my advice for you. When are you saying yes to you? So instead of saying no to other people, how can you say yes to yourself? So start with, what do I want to say yes for myself? What Janet Jackson said, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for you lately? So just kind of start there with, this is what I want my yes to be. And then if anything comes along that interferes with that, you are saying yes to you, so you can't say yes to other people. So start with what you want to say yes to for yourself.
And also attaching your yes to your morals and your values. If you're saying yes to things that aren't your morals and your values, or your self worth, then it needs to be a no rather than a yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have another question in the audience.
Hi, my name is Sharon, and I have actually two questions. The first question is, what books would each of you recommend for specifically for African American women who are dealing with stress and burnout? Well, second question is, and I don't know because you've mentioned you've done this podcast several times. Have you all put a list out of African American therapists or psychiatrists in the community?
The first one was a book, right? Okay, that's my cousin, y'all. So
Hey, cousin, how you doing?
I would recommend The Garden Within by Dr. Anita Phillips. It's amazing, like literally perfect. And she's a therapist, she's a licensed trauma therapist, and she's a pastor as well. So it kind of ties in the spirituality, the religion, and the clinical stuff. So, but I'll tell you.
I like the book Do Less, which is some of us are always trying to do the most. And so the book Do Less is really about doing just enough and not going above and beyond. And for some of us, that's really hard. Like if we don't go above and beyond, we're like, I didn't do it well enough. All right, so Do Less is like good enough is good enough. So that's the book that I really like.
Okay. Mine would be the Black Women's Mental Health Guide, and it's by Dr. Bell and two more other psychologists, and it does kind of walk through major things such as the strong Black woman syndrome, the Superwoman syndrome, burnout, stress, and so it does walk through a lot of different aspects that we experience pretty often and have been handed down for generation to generation.
And then what was your second question?
The second question was, I don't know if, because I know you've done the podcast several times, had you all listed African American therapists and psychiatrists in the community of Indianapolis that are available?
We've done that in a couple of episodes, Dr. Sigrid, right? We have. So we'll make sure you have those resources as well, okay? Okay. One more question, okay?
Sorry. So first of all, thank you. I am so full. This has just been so amazing. Is there a place that we can go for Exhale to get just our daily fix? You know, is there a social media page that we can go like right this second? What can we do to be more engaged in Exhale?
We're on episode 11, and there is an Exhale Instagram page. It's at Exhale Be Well. So follow the page. We'll have all of our episodes there, clips from all of our guests, as well as life hacks starting next week. So I'll be doing that on the air as well, just giving women life hacks to get through their day-to-day, whether it's personal or professional, or if you just need a me time moment, we have that for you, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to wrap by talking about takeaways that the three of you got out of this episode today. And before we get to that, just hearing your stories and you being vulnerable about what you all have been through, and then of course you all being in the mental health field. So can you share with everyone listening in the audience your why? Why is this your field of choice? Why is this your passion? Why is this that you wake up and this is what you love to do every day?
My why is kind of long, but I'll keep it short.
Take your time, sis.
But ultimately, I chose this field because it chose me. And I always tell people that when it comes to the work that we do, I believe that it's a calling, because God has to give you the specific grace to carry some of the things that we have to carry. But the thing that kind of like pushed me into this field was when I want to say my sophomore year of college, of undergrad. I was actually studying radiology. Definitely was not for me. The anatomy, the physics, absolutely not. But during that time, my grandmother, she ended up moving in with me and my family, and she had Alzheimer's, and she was progressing very quickly. So during that time, I suppressed a lot of my feelings and my emotions because it was just a lot going on. And a lot of people don't know that when people experience Alzheimer's, they also start to experience hallucinations. So it was just a lot of different things, different forms of psychosis I was being able to identify within her and all of that. So from experiencing helping to care for her, and then after her passing away, I started to do some grief facilitation work. And then from there, I became a case manager, a crisis case manager at Wheeler Mission Center for Women and Children. And then I was doing biblical counseling there. I was also counseling with my church. So I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. At this point, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so I went on and got my master's in mental health and addictions at IUPUI, passed my licensure exam, and I've been doing it ever since. So yeah, I just look at it as a calling, and I'm honestly grateful that God trusts me with his children in their most vulnerable moments to help them progress and just be better.
Okay, I'll go. So I think I'm gonna try and answer both your questions. So the thing that I've gotten from this panel the most today is how important it is for you to be intentional with actually getting to what you want to experience. So when we think about burnout, we usually think about how can we stop doing things, but sometimes you have to be really intentional with what you start doing. So getting out, connecting with people. We all love our work from home lives. We love to order our groceries, but sometimes you have to get out and be amongst the people. So I think that's a really important thing. But I took the scenic route to being a certified trauma-informed coach, and my background's in school counseling. But I think the important thing for me was I wanted to make sure that people had something to look at that looked like them, right? When I think of mental health, I don't think of it as something that's out there. To me, it's very much a daily practice. It's making sure that the best version of my life I know includes some form of mental health care every single day, whether that's going for a walk or doing meditation or what have you. So I didn't want it to feel super clinical or, something like, you go to therapy once a week, which is great, but you've got to have ways to support yourself the other 167 hours of the week. So that's my why, is making sure that people have access to that.
Okay. I wanted to be a psychologist since I was 13 years old. I had watched the movie The Burning Bed with Farrah Fawcett, for those who remember. And it was about a woman who was in a domestic violent marriage. And so I saw her trying to get help. And everywhere she went to get help, she was being re-traumatized and blamed or victimized for why she stayed, why she didn't leave. She didn't have more than a high school education. She had 3 children. She wasn't working. And so it made me think about not just her, but other individuals, be it their cultural background, racial, ethnic, their sexual identity, gender development, their physical abilities or challenges. And I wanted to be able to work with, speak for, help those who may have challenges getting help in whatever way they can. And so being here today just reminds me of why I decided to go into practice, stay in practice individually and in groups with others who might not have the means to pay out of pocket, who are coming through insurance, because we all do need help. We are a society of individuals who have been I would say, not really bragged upon, but maybe blamed, victimized, or maybe encouraged and promoted about what we've been able to accomplish and withstand. And so that can empower us, but it can also be a weight that blocks us and prevents us from asking for help. And that's for our women and for our men, as it is June. June is Men's Health Month as well. So we need to make sure that we constantly talk about these issues as women, men, as therapists, that we all need to make sure we have a tribe, support, therapists, maybe even medication. And so just being here today is that reminder of how valuable these conversations are for all individuals.
Any final advice you would like to share?
I feel like my advice is always grace. Everything is a journey, and I feel like we use the word practice a lot today. So give yourself grace along your journey of learning new practices. You're not going to immediately pick up on them. They're not going to immediately be second nature, but as time goes on and you see that you're giving yourself that grace, it'll be a lot easier for you to practice and implement these new healthy habits that we kind of discussed today.
I don't have necessarily advice, but I do want to make sure everybody is aware of 988 Suicide Crisis Hotline, as well as Black Women Thrive is a website that can be helpful. Black girls with burnout, therapy for Black girls, or different websites that have blogs and resources for individuals who need to have a perspective that might fit more with where we are culturally in our history. And that's my advice, is always ask for help and seek help whenever you can and wherever you can.
I think I would just say keep this conversation going, right? So normalize this conversation, have it at the dinner table, have it at the beauty shop, have it at the coffee break, what have you. Just normalize this conversation so that it becomes less stigmatized and it becomes more normalized, and so that people, when you recognize those signs and symptoms of burnout in each other, that you've already kind of had that conversation. So just keep this conversation going so that it's more of a natural part of your life.
We definitely will, and that's what Exhale is here for sure. So where can our listeners find you and your work? Where can we connect with you all?
So I do a lot of work within the community as well. My email address is lakeishajohnsonbookings@gmail.com. So that's where you can connect with me at. I'm also very active on my social media pages. My Instagram is Lakeisha J. Johnson. Right now, I do work at the VA. So I provide brief therapy services for veterans throughout the primary care offices within the VA. But I also just joined the team over at the Well Counseling and Consulting Group.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm gonna let Carolyn give you all the information about that, because I'm pretty sure she knows all the details better than I do right now. But those are the ways that you can connect with me.
Absolutely. So you can connect with both of us. I'm on Instagram at the Well CCG. You're gonna also find us on Facebook or at thewellcounselinggroup.com on our website. We do have individual counseling there, and you can also kind of just connect with us through that website as well.
My website is diversecounseling.org. You can also find me at Psychology Today under Sigrid Elston, and you probably can find most of us in some capacity through Psychology Today. And even if it's not us, there are other therapists where you can put in your geographical location, your insurance, the age range of individual for whom you may be seeking services, race or sexual orientation, or other particular topics or concerns that might be beneficial to your search for a therapist, and that's psychologytoday.com.
Wonderful. This conversation is so needed. The first word that came was enlightening, because each and every time that we keep the conversation going, we learn something new, and we learn something new that is needed in our lives. So I just want to thank the three of you again for being here today, to shedding light on what burnout looks like and what bliss looks like. And we want to get to the other side and stay in our bliss life season. How about that? All right. Well, I want to thank Dr. Sigrid Elston, Lakeisha Johnson, and Kavalin Day for being here on this very special episode of Exhale, Black Woman's Guide to Mental Health, that you can find at WTLCFM.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. We're across all the platforms. In this episode, Burnout to Bliss, Life Hacks for Today's Superwoman, helps us keep our cape on, but our cape a bit stronger, and knowing when to take it off. All the way off, not halfway off, like off in the closet for a little while, so we can learn how to do nothing. Again, thank you all for being here. It's been great to be on the stage at IBE Summer Celebration in Hall F, and looking forward to doing this again. Make sure you follow us for our next episode, and until then, exhale and be well.